to Alabama Gristmill. It's good to have you back. The co-host Mike with your host Mike with my co-host Donna Causey. Say hello.
Hello, glad to be here today.
We lost you there for a second.
I disappeared for a second, didn't I?
Well, we got a fun story today that's tied to an event coming up in the springtime. We have all the everybody has the festivals in the cities. Everybody wants to getting out after the wintertime, and we've got a festival coming up here in Russellville. The Russellville Pioneer Day on May 12th. And this episode kind of ties in with that. It's about a town that was thriving in the area. Franklin County, Alabama, is now a ghost town in Mississippi. So it's interesting to see how this town, was rocking and rolling and then eventually just kind of faded away.
And moved, it looked like.
And actually, the town actually moved. That's true.
Actually, it didn't, but it did. You get that in the story. It's real interesting.
And we want to mention is, this story and among others you can find them in our series of books, Alabama Footprints, that are available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, different bookstores online. And you can either find them locally in your bookstores. And if you don't find them there, you can always ask for them. They'll order it for you. So you can find that.
And that's one of the libraries too. That sometimes you just let them know because they can find them.
And one thing we just done recently is we released the first 3 books in one book altogether. So you can buy the first 3 in
first 4.
First 4, actually. The first 4 are all in one book together, and you can buy them all at a cheaper price.
Yeah, you can buy them for the price of 3. You get 4.
And real quickly, if you're not familiar with the Alabama Footprints books, what we've done is gone through the different eras in time and have the stories that are tied to those eras. So you can actually go through the early pioneer days of Alabama before it was a state and all the way. What have you gone up to now?
We're up to we just finished the Native Americans removal from Alabama. It was a sad one on that last book was. It started with exploration.
8 volumes?
Yeah. Yes, I have 8 volumes now, and they're all little short stories that you probably haven't read about or in normal history books. I like to find those the unknown ones or the little known stories and put them in little vignettes.
They're still fascinating too. Fascinating stories.
Yeah, the fascinating stories about people and some people that you never heard of in our textbooks. The historians kind of pick in their history books. They kind of pick the major points. They don't necessarily go on these little side stories, and that's what I'm trying to include in these.
And the other big bonus about the books is that they're not, dry as your typical history books, and especially history of that time. They're not dry, archaic language. It's more very easily digestible, fun to read. It's on the lines of like a Reader's Digest, where you can actually go in and read a little short essay or story and learn a lot about the history of Alabama while doing so.
And a lot of the times too, I've been lucky enough to find some of the court records that from the Library of Congress or about the treaties and some of the exact words that were used in the treaties by the people that had recorded the events.
Well, another nice thing is you can also, if you know a student that is into history or want to learn Alabama history, they're definitely family friendly, can be given to your teenagers and all that to learn about history of Alabama. And
right, they are.
They're really family. So it's a good gift. It's a good gift, is the way I like to put it.
Yeah, they make good gifts. It's nice to be able to read from a diary of people living back then, and a lot of diary entries are included in the book. So it's really nice to see the world from their viewpoint.
So, like this story, among others, if you like them, you can always find them in printed form. And because we always get that question that people email or have been emailing and asking is, do you have something I can actually have it printed out? Because they don't like reading it on the screen or necessarily hearing about it all the time. They'd like to have something they can actually sit down with and step away from computer devices. So this is what we did to do that. So you can have that. To read.
Take along. Quick little take along.
Yeah, take along.
If you want to go somewhere and read.
And that being said, that we do have them on Kindle and ebooks and things like that.
Too. They can be read.
They're available that way as well. But I know we have a lot of people that still like to just hold a good book, as I do, and have something you don't have to worry about recharging. Book's always great for that. Well, we'll go ahead and get into the story of this town in Franklin County and how it.
Well, it was in Franklin
became
County.
Not in.
Well,
it was in Franklin County, and how
actually when it wasn't. It was in Franklin.
Let's just go ahead and get in the story. Let's just go ahead and get. Yeah, we'll just go ahead and get in the story. Let's not try to explain it now.
It's getting too complicated doing it that way. I'll just go through the story. Okay. Well, it's now a ghost town, but and the town is Cotton Gin Port. And it was, if you've done any research in Alabama, you'll see that name pop up over and over again. And and you wonder because it's not there anymore, And it is now in Monroe County, Mississippi. But it was once considered a thriving town in the Alabama Territory, and for years and years. And when you're in Franklin County, if you go to this Pioneer Day, it's always good. Why we're including it with Franklin County is because it's very near it, and right on the line, and the site of this town. And if you go to Franklin County, there are a lot of things you want to look around and see as you visit the county, like the Dismal Canyons, where we had a story on that about on Aaron Burr a few weeks ago, and he hid out he was supposedly hid out in Dismal's Canyon. And it's a beautiful place to visit. It's on the Register Landmark. It's the most secluded and beautiful area, and it's in Franklin County. Then there's Jackson's Military Road that was built in Franklin County between 1816 and 1820, which Andrew Jackson and his troops built to save their time travel between Nashville and New Orleans. And you can see historical signs that point the way and tell you all about that in the area. And then the military road actually went into Cotton Gin Port. It was a place for them to refurbish whatever they needed to do and restock. That's what I mean, restock their supplies. And another thing you might not realize, but there are a lot of musicians and songwriters in Franklin County that came from Franklin County, like Billy Sherrill, who he was born in Phil Campbell, and Tammy Wynette she claims Red Bay is her town in Franklin County. And Carrie Gilbert was born in Russellville, along with many other musicians. So there's a strong musician history in Franklin County as well. But now we'll get on to the ghost town. It's there in Monroe County, Mississippi. You'll find a historic sign. It's about all that's left of the town. There's not much. I think it now the area belongs to the city. I don't know if you can get on it anymore. You can read about it there. A cotton gin was built by the United States government for the Chickasaw around 1801. They were trying to do it in a way they thought to civilize the Native Americans, That's what the Europeans always tried to do as they came into the area. Ruins of the old town can still be found, if there's any left, on the Tennessee-Tom Waterway and the Tombigbee River. It's on the east bank of the Tombigbee River. And they say that the area itself dates back to 1600 BC, believe it or not. And was a mound on it that was 50 yards square and 8 feet high. So it had a lot of the mound building Native Americans that lived in that area. Initially, though, it wasn't a part of Franklin County. It was initially part of Marion County, Alabama. It was at a crossing of Indian trails. French explorers came to Alabama. They used it as a base in 1736 and 1752. It's a little over a mile below the junction of the Tombigbee River and Town Creek. And at one time, in the town, an immense oak tree stood called the council tree. And this council trees, as you've probably heard, are treaties where the Native Americans met with the Europeans, and a lot of them settled conflicts or settled treaties. But it was a very, very famous place for a long time to be just a ghost town now. The cotton gin later became a Chickasaw trading post. It became so popular. And as I mentioned before, the military road that Andrew Jackson built led to it around 1812. The cotton gin, though, that they built didn't last very long. They'd only used it a few months. They don't know exactly what happened, but for some reason it burned. after a few months. And there's about 3 stories why. One was the Choctaws kind of got jealous of it and burned it down because they were not getting one, and the Chickasaws did. And another one is the Chickasaws didn't really want this in civilization and these new things coming into the area, so they just burned it down. And the third one was just an accident that happened and it burned. But we don't really know why it burned. But the area still continued to remain important and became a trading post. Around about 1816, white settlers moved in. And they came, like many other settlers, to new areas. They were led by a minister, and the minister's name was Frederick Weaver. And they settled around the Russellville area where the Pioneer Days was taking place. And Weaver built the New Hope Church. And some of the families' names were William Wise family, the Gideon family, Eli Thames, and Robert Coyle. They were the first 5 families in the Russellville area. And by 1820, though, they didn't grow real fast, but they did have 8 log cabins. And Major Isaac Mayfield built a general store, and he built a hotel as well. And 2 more men opened a trading post. Barney Flynn built the first grist mill. Other families that joined him were the Waltons, the Lucas family, the Doggetts, and the Mayfields. About 2 miles away, the Bowers, the Gunaway, the Rayburns, the Bickerstaff, Mayfield, Malone, Thomas, Folks, Cannon, McQuarrie, and Cooper. So if you're a member of those families, you might look up in that area and see if you can find any more information about it. Here they were building up this great, wonderful town, the Cotton Gin Port in Alabama, and things were going great. And they decided in 1821 that it needed to be surveyed. But lo and behold, when they did the survey, they discovered the town was not in Alabama territory. It was in Mississippi. So from then on, it was in Malone, Mississippi. So the town didn't move. It just got surveyed and put in the right place. The town continued to grow until about 1848, and it reached about 500 people. It didn't get real large, but it's large for that day and time. And they had about 20 stores, a flour mill, and a carding factory. And they were really looking forward to the future. What happened to the poor town, though, was in 1887, the Kansas City, Memphis, and Birmingham Railroad decided to build a railroad running into the area. And it didn't go by Cotton Gin Port. It missed the town. And so when that's back in those days, if you weren't on the railroad line, you kind of diminished. And a new town by the name of Amory was built, and it was the Cotton Gin Port. Everybody kind of moved into that new town. And if you want to look for some artifacts from the old town of Cotton Gin Port, you may find them in their museum. So what's left of it, there's not very much left of Cotton Gin Port anymore, from what I understand. You know, people that have visited the area, you can't tell much about this thriving little important town in our history.
True. So that was truly a forgotten town.
It really was, and it's still forgotten. And then because of it being now in another place, I that's what caused me to really look into it a little further, because I kept seeing, Cotton Gin Port mentioned in court records over and over again, but I couldn't find the town. And finally I found a map with it on it. So, and that's the story of what happened to it. So it's just Mississippi and Alabama have a real close relationship with that town. A lot of the people moved over to Mississippi after that. So, but they were originally settlers of Alabama.
Yeah, that always amazes me with a town that gets moved away or goes away because of an arbitrary, not necessarily an arbitrary decision of putting the railroad and missing the town. It just, everything fades away. Yeah,
and another way that happens too is some people just decide they don't like the name of the town, and the city people decide, okay, we'll change it. And you go along and you keep reading about your families from this town, and all of a sudden the name changed, and you wonder, did they move? What happened? But that's why it's important to research the history. not just.
Yeah, because you don't see that much anymore as the town's changing names.
But they did a lot back then. I mean, it was common, just for silly reasons. They didn't like the person who named it or who it was named after, and especially after the Civil War. Things like that happened a lot. People would change names of towns. So it's hard to find them. It's hard to trace them down. You have to go back in history. And this one was kind of more difficult because of the situation of being in another state. There was nothing in Alabama that even resembled cotton gin port for a number of years, because that's when 1821 is when it was changed. So up until then, you heard of it in Alabama, and then it just kind of disappeared.
Like we mentioned before, if you want to go up in the area on May 12th, Russellville will be having their Pioneer Day up there, and that's from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. up in Franklin County. And it's part of the bicentennial that you were talking about earlier.
Right. That's what we're trying to focus on, is a lot of these towns and mention them to these events that are happening, because people are in these small towns particularly are going above board to really provide a good experience this year. They may have had festivals before, but since this is if you're part of the bicentennial, you're going a little step further. So if you want to know more about pioneers.
It's special. It's not often that time a bicentennial comes around.
It's not. And they're going to a lot of, and they really should be rewarded for what they're doing. By your attendance is one way to do it, because it's a lot of effort.
Plus,
to put this together.
It's a lot of fun up there, because this is a true Pioneer Day. So you're going to see, the Pioneer Days and that time and the skills and craftsmanship of those times. They're going to have a Civil War camp. I know Native American camp to show an example of that. So you're going to see a lot of history at these. I mean, they're going to do the whole blacksmith shop, basket weaving, butter churning, and soap making, wool spinning. So you're seeing some true pioneer arts and crafts going on in demonstrations.
And of course, great family event, something like this.
Yeah, I was about to say, have a bunch of stuff with the kids and everything with wagon rides and things like that. They'll be having some music, I'm sure, of that era as well.
That's what we're trying to do so much with Alabama Pioneers, is create a living history. Well, you're going to have it right in an event like this. Bring your kids along. Children today have no idea what life was like that, and just reading about it is not as good as seeing it. It really makes a big impression on you.
Absolutely. But again, that's going to be on Saturday, May 12th from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. at Sloss Lake in Russellville, Alabama. So it's definitely a good time. And the best part about it, I always like to say, it's free.
That's right. So, a lot of these...
So that can make a fun afternoon or fun day out and experiencing some history of Alabama.
That's right. That's what's neat about all these bicentennial events. You might think about spending your summer vacation and going touring all around in Alabama this year, because this year... Until December 19th, there's going to be more and more of this for the next 2 years.
What's that website? What's the Alabama travel website for the bicentennial?
Here it is, alabama200.org.
Okay, and you can find out all the information about the different events going on during the bicentennial by going there.
And a lot of people are submitting events, but you have to be recognized for them to get on that calendar, so they feel like you're going to have a good day. This is a recognized event of the Alabama 200 Centennial celebration.
So get on up to Russellville that May 12th and check out that event. And with that, we'll go ahead and wrap this episode up. And until next week, we'll see you later on. And we'll let Alabama or Red Foley play us out with a little bit of Alabama Jubilee.
And goodbye. You have a good week.
One-legged Joe dancing round on his toes, throws away his crutch and hollers, hey, let her go.